Today we're going to price out how to paint the walls in a family room, as well as some wooden trim that we're gonna have to prime and paint 2 coats. And finally, we're gonna add in the fireplace mantle for the customer. Follow along as Michael and I talk about how we do it, our different techniques, some tips and tricks, and how we use PaintScout to get a price super fast to the customer.
Hey, welcome back. I am Michael. I'm here with Jon from PaintScout, and we are excited to provide another how to estimate video. We're creating these videos to help the industry. We believe strongly that if we provide our clients with the appropriate price, it makes running a successful painting business that much easier. So today we're going to be taking a look at this family room, kind of great room, living room area here, and just talking about some different ways that we would come up with how long it would take using production rate estimating, as well as trying to show you a little bit of how to do this in PaintScout.
Let me start an estimate here. So I'll start a new interior estimate. As per usual, the templates are great in PaintScout, but we're just going to go with an empty quote. And we are not going to put contact info or job address. We're going straight to pricing this thing. So you mentioned the walls, right, in here?
Yep.
Now, let's get some dimensions of this thing here.
I like the idea of building this with like the walls as our main price, but then the customer is going to want some options. So they want option to paint over this wood trim. So we've got the windows, the baseboards. We'll see here in a minute, there's a door that needs to be added. And then the second option they're going to want as we start building this thing is to paint this brick on the fireplace. So we're going to have a few different pricing numbers here. And it's also going to kind of show off that options feature.
Perfect. All right. So I cannot quite see, just based on how our screen is, what the dimensions are. So let's just guess at the dimensions here. I think you and I have done this long enough to have a sense of this guy.
Yep.
We're going to here, let's add an area. And we're going to add the, what do you say, the living room? Perfect. Sure. All right. Width, I'm thinking this is probably 15 to 20, somewhere in there.
Is that the fireplace wall or the TV wall?
The fireplace wall. Good question.
Fireplace. Yeah, I think, that number of about 15. Yeah, 15 to 20. Sure.
I'm going 18.
Yeah, that works.
Length, TV wall. What do you see in there? Probably, I don't know. I want to say like 22, 25, somewhere.
Yeah, I was thinking 25. So I think we're about the same place there. Seems
perfect.
Bigger.
And this is an interesting question. 25. I guess the height. Now, people are going to say, well, is this part of the ceiling or part of the walls? I think that's a question probably for your customer. In my mind, it looks like the same color, though. So how do you want to address that?
Yeah, I would think it's probably should be considered part of the ceiling as far as like the architecture goes.
Okay.
I would say it definitely needs to be painted. That red stripe is leaving something to be desired.
It's pretty cool. I think I'm going to do that in my house very soon. So
it's the trendsetter.
Very, very much so. This is new for 2030, and I want to get ahead of the game.
There you go.
All right. Well, let's just go with 8 foot then.
Perfect.
10 foot, 8 foot, 10. Yeah, 8 foot works. All right. So we got our dimensions in there for the living room, and you said we want to do the walls, right? So
walls. Yep. We're
just going to go and select here walls, 85 square feet an hour. Sounds good to me. System's coming up with 8.5 hours total for this room. I mean, I trust this rate, so I'm saying sure. Looks good to me.
Sure.
Any feedback from you?
Nope. I like that. I would just need to add a little bit of like room setup to that. Doesn't look like any significant prep work. I don't see any major holes, things like that. We're going to require that the client move the TV before we get there. Just from a liability perspective. So we're not going to move that, but we are going to have to move some of the rest of this furniture out of the way. Basic wall prep, patching the nail holes, things like that. So in a room this size, probably about 4 hours.
4 hours, okay.
Does that sound about right in your book?
Yeah, I mean, we usually go with a rate of 100. So I'm a little bit lower. I feel like 85 includes a bit of that prep, but we're going to be very close in the end. So let's leave it at that.
Okay.
Confirm. Now, a couple of questions we always get, which is, we got some windows. We removed those. We got this area behind us. Do we remove that? And my answer is no. Is that your answer, Michael?
Correct.
My answer is no. And to elaborate on that, you have cut time. You got time to work around those things. it's honestly like such a minute amount of time that like I'm not going to factor that in. Now, if this whole wall was windows, that might be a little bit different, but that's not what we're talking about. So it's also PCA standard not to remove that stuff. And I think kind of industry is agreed that it's just more work to go around it. So yeah, so that's where I'm at.
I agree 100%. If you're looking at this picture that we have right now, the wall with the TV, imagine that TV gone. They take the TV down, or the wall with that like 4 windows section. I don't know that the wall with the windows paints faster. I would argue that it's probably going to take a little more time because of that added cutting around the window, especially with the stain trim there, which I don't want to get any paint on. I'm going to have to tape that off or something along those lines. So it's like, again, I'd paint the wall where the TV is, assuming the TV's down, faster, because it's just as a percentage of surface, I get to roll so much more versus having to use the brush.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, quick little thing there. What are the questions we get? What's his price? Obviously we've allocated 12.5 hours. That's crew time. This price you can see here does not include any materials. It's just labor time. So if you're looking for how to price that labor time, we have other videos on how to get your hourly rate, which is critical as a reflection of your business, depending on where you are and what type of service offering you have. I include my materials as part of my labor rate. Michael, I know you add that on separately, but ultimately you're going to get to a pretty similar number. And so for those asking, does this include paint? Does it not? Well, it's going to depend what that labor number is. In this case, I would say I'm not sure exactly what the labor rate is specifically, but that's my take.
Yeah, makes sense. Sure. Yeah, I mean, if somebody said, that price is too low or that price is too high, again, it's going to depend on where you are in the country, how much does labor cost where you are, paint materials, again, to your point, like, are we providing our employees with benefits? All these different factors that are going to affect the cost of running a business. That's super unique to each, person. So what we're hoping to do is teach how long it's going to take to do this. And then, like you mentioned in separate videos, we talk about how to calculate your own hourly rate.
Perfect. So for those who are wondering, $85 is what we're charging here. That may or may not include material depending on how your business is structured. All right. So we got that there. What should we tackle next? How about the wood trim?
Yeah.
Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, let's add some options. So we're going to have let's go wood baseboards.
Okay. So we're going to add some trim in here. Baseboards.
We have to consider for somebody that's new to this is, first of all, we're going to probably clean them, either sand or degloss. We need to get that polyurethane type, coating off, that clear coat, so that the new primers and paint can stick. We're also going to need to caulk the baseboards to the wall and fill any nail holes.
So it's involved.
It's involved, yeah. I always tell clients that generally speaking, like, area to area, painting over bare wood or stained wood trim is the most expensive thing that we do.
Totally. So let's talk about rate for a second. So we base it off linear feet. Typically, we're looking at 2 coats, 25. I find sometimes that number is a little slow. You can go a little faster sometimes with baseboards, but we're essentially talking about 3 coats. And so, because you got to prime and paint. Now, there's some customer expectation here as well, to kind of build into that. I feel like you're priming with white, you're painting with white. How perfect do the baseboards have to be? But if we're going with the standard 3 coats, you're probably 6 hours to do that.
Yeah, I would add to that some additional prep time. I feel like 6 is probably a little light. This is probably the production rate that we have adjusted the most over the last 5 to 7 years, where we find ourselves, in the past, not charging enough time to do this kind of work.
Right.
And it's just time consuming. It's just tedious. So I'd probably throw in 2 extra hours of prep, again, for the, sanding and caulking and nail filling and just the different things like that.
Yep. Nailed it. So 680. It's funny because sometimes I'm like, oh, they're just little baseboards. Like it's not that big of a deal, but this stuff takes time. Like not only are you protecting the carpet, you're caulking, you're filling, you're sanding. It's like a full on involved process. So I'm not against that at all. Okay, so let's add in a couple of window trim, I guess.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, we've got the two like individual windows on the side of the fireplace, and then we've got that big bank of 4 windows behind the.
Yeah, and these are openers too. We got 2 openers there. Oh, 4. Oh, I love a good opener. You know what I'm talking about when I say opener?
Casement window. I mean, it's what this would be. Yep.
Yeah.
Window that opens though. Yeah, I mean, I get your point. Yeah, some of if possible. It looks like maybe in that window section of 4 that maybe 2 of them don't open. They're fixed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it certainly is going to add more time if you have to open up that window, to get to the different edges, I guess would be the right word.
Yeah. So okay, we're gonna add some windows in here. So we said we have 6, 4 of which are casement. Now we list them out in small, medium, large, and we have standards within our company have had that of how this actually looks and feels. So what is a large window? What's medium? What's a small? That's a discussion you probably need to have internally or make for yourself. But in this particular case, we're dealing with a different type of window essentially, which is a stained window going to paint. Not a rate here that I would say is perfect. So should we create a custom rate or just go off this? What do you think?
Either way, yeah, I would probably lean towards custom rate, I guess. But again, either way, you're going to end up in the same place.
Okay, so we're going to go with window trim. That's how I'd list it out. And then we're going to go with our hours per item. And in this particular case, so these are going to require sanding, priming, painting, 2 coats, caulking probably a bunch of the gaps.
Yeah,
it's a lot of work.
I would imagine there's going to be quite a bit of caulking actually on this.
Yeah, so all the way around in between those seams. My feeling goes to, prep per window is probably an hour. And then we've got 3 coats of paint probably being applied at half an hour each. 2.5 hours?
Yeah, I think all in, I'm probably about 3 hours a window on something like this.
3 hours a window.
Without looking up my actual production rate, I think we're probably about there. Just what
we got 6 of those. Now we're not treating these ones that are fixed any different, are we?
I'm not.
No. So same thing.
And I mean, again, if you want to take off a half hour, I'll say this: like if I was actually bidding this project, just from many years of doing this stuff, over 20 years, that I've been doing this stuff. These are the types of jobs that I've too often underquoted and not made enough money on or any money on. And so I'm going to tend to maybe slightly round up, if you will, with some of this stuff just to make sure that we have enough time to do this correctly.
For sure. I think it's been so easy over the years for me to talk myself down out of these rates. To be like, oh, we can do it faster because it just seems like a lot. Then you get into it and it is a lot. And I just like it. The worst thing for me is like being excited to get a project and find out I don't have enough time. Like I messed it up. I'd rather get projects where I feel like I'm giving the best, obviously service that relates to our company, but that I'm not rushing. Like, let's do this right.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah,
all right. So
that's about right.
Yeah, and I guess here we've got, let me see here. Yeah, we don't have anything in particular there. So we've got 6 window trim, 18 hours, and we got those baseboards. And then we were going to do the mantle too, right?
Yeah, I think painting that fireplace brick or stone, whatever, it's hard to tell in the picture. But yeah, I think that, why not, just for something else to do while we're in here.
Yeah, so just to be clear, so we're in the miscellaneous trim section here, like by default, this says 1.5 hours per item. This is not what we're talking about here. That would be like a piece of wood that goes across the top. In this case, it's like a full-on mantle, but the customer is going to feel it's the same description essentially. So we're going to adjust that. So let's go back into that and walk me through. I mean, why don't I walk you through my process here first
That'd be
and see
great.
if you agree. So this is going to require, once again, a prime, 2 coats of paint, and we got to prep this thing off. Typically, our approach has been to spray it in the past. Um, Brush and roll can be done. It's just very finicky work, especially once you get into those grout sections.
Yep.
And just to get full coverage is hard. And so we take these as if they're a separate item that has to be prepped into a bit of a spray bubble, and then we are going to apply that primer and 2 coats of paint. So I'm immediately, anytime that I have a spray project, I'm at 16 hours immediately. That's going to be 8 hours for setup, all that kind of stuff, and then 8 hours to just apply these 3 coats of paint. So that's kind of where my mind goes immediately. I don't want to allocate anything less than 2 full days for a person.
Yeah, I can get on board with that. Yeah, I feel like we might think about it slightly different. I think we would use like a, square footage of brick and, a rate of maybe, I don't remember exactly, but like 50 or 60 square feet per hour.
Okay.
And I think we'd probably end up in the same place.
Let's see for argument's sake.
We would add all the like masking time to spray and see in the room and stuff.
Let's see for argument's sake. I think that's an interesting one. So there's my quick assessment. Now we are painting the walls here, so that does take down some time from that full bubble. But let's just see here, Michael, from your, let's go custom rate, and we'll go Michael's mantle. How about that? And we got square foot of walls. So it says walls, but ultimately it's just square foot of surface area.
Yep.
Per hour. And here we've got a length of, I don't know,
8 by 8, something like that.
8 by 8. So width, length, height.
Obviously, we would just measure it with a laser measure if we were in person.
Yeah, so we're in the room. I'm going to go switch to square feet here. So 8 by 8, so we got 64 square feet. And what would be your rate per hour?
Let's use 50. Again, I'm not looking that up, but I think that seems about right.
50, okay. And we're going to go, so that's 50 square feet for spraying, and then you've got prep time, right?
Yeah, so again, quite a bit of prep time. To your point from before, like most of the cost of doing this happens before you get out your paint, or the time of doing this happens before. So if we're looking at this 1.5 and your number was 16, it's like, oh man, you got 10 times the amount that I do. But I think, you kind of made the reference before is that like, the amount of time it takes to get ready to do this is really where it comes down to. If I'm set up, can I put paint on this area in a half hour out of a sprayer? For sure. Mm-hmm. It's just getting to the point where I actually pull the trigger on that sprayer is going to take every bit of 10 to 15 hours.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm going to have, I can imagine 2 people. We're setting up a big plastic wall, kind of like, somewhere towards like that red couch or whatever to kind of bubble this in. Ventilation going out one of the windows. Masking off the actual like fireplace, probably the like hearth where that like blue vase is, that all has to get masked off. Carpet, obviously, ceiling. You said walls. I'm probably still going to put some masking on those walls because just so I don't blow them up with different masonry paints and primers and stuff.
Right.
So yeah, I would honestly be somewhere in the neighborhood of the same thing that you had before, but I would get there just slightly different. And I'd probably go in the neighborhood of like 12 to 15 hours to mask this.
Okay, so we're going to put 15 hours to mask. So, so we ended up at kind of the same spot. I like here's the thing. You can also break that down square footage into prep time as well,
sure.
which is helpful at a certain point for production rates, because like we want to create a system where people are just counting and measuring. And what I just went through and what you went through was both like, there's some, personal experience that came into play. So say you were to go and do that, like my argument here would be you could essentially create, your rate with prep, given that we know it's like a mantle, Michael's mantle spray application. And here we could go down to, you know what, it might be 5, right? So, oh, sorry, that's the wrong place. So 64, and here we're dealing with 5, right? So like that gets us to, so take out the prep rate. We're at 13 hours. It's close. What about if we went to, 4.5? Whoops. Now we're at 14 and a half hours. So like, you're like, wow, 4.5 square feet per hour, but this is a reflection of the process. And now you just have to measure the mantle and you've got a time that makes sense. Yep. And so I think that is where I believe everyone should be getting to, is just a way to do this systematically. So you can hire an estimator, so you can get, have pricing that you feel confident in that tackles that prep, because prep is like it's a beast on its own. So anyways, I'll get off my mantle now.
And to the point that you're making, though, like if you might go into a room where it's like 2 stories tall and you've got and they have similar like fireplace with the stone bricks around, and they want, now it's, the same thing, but just twice as tall. And how do we account for that? And, in the simple answer is like what you just showed is easy, because you just measure, you just change the height dimension, and it's just going to give you another number, just like you would if it was a wall or any of the other surfaces like that.
Absolutely. Cool.
It's more
all right. For those PaintScout users out there, or if you're not a PaintScout user, check it out, get a demo. Maybe this is for you as a painter, but we're going to show you just quickly how to make this into an option. So options, super powerful. The customer may have not even asked for this, but hey, we can do it now because we have a system that we can generate pricing really fast out of. So Michael, would you go and combine this stuff? Would you do it independently? How would you present it to this customer?
Yeah, I'd probably have like a grouped option for the baseboards and the window trim.
Okay. So personally. Okay, so we're going to go here and okay.
Yeah, you just remove the like double entry of the mantle just to show what you just did.
Yeah, so I took that there. So we're going to make this an option. Make an option and make an option. And then we're going to add that here. Okay, so there we are. We've got a grouped living room option here down at the bottom. So we got baseboards, window trim, fireplace, mantle, and then we've got the living room walls, which is what the customer asked for. How do you feel about that? Is that how you want to present it to the customer?
Yeah, I like it. I think certainly I would take some time to like describe exactly what we're doing on the trim and mantle. Just for sure. I don't think we need to do that for the sake of this video. But I would try to provide a little bit more detail there, just from like a sales perspective. I want somebody to understand like the amount of time it's going to, that cost includes cleaning, sanding, caulking, filming, all the things that we talked about in this video. I don't want to leave it up to the customer to, maybe just remember that we had that conversation. So when they go and compare my price maybe to somebody else's who didn't talk about doing that prep work, who's maybe not as concerned as to whether or not the paint actually adheres, there's a little bit of maybe fear into like, you get what you pay for kind of idea.
Totally. I totally agree. And for those who are wondering if you can, price that out separately, right? Because maybe the mantle's really of interest and the rest isn't. So when you're in an individual substrate, you can go down here, show the price, confirm that. We're going to go here. Oops, do the same thing for window trim. We will show the price and the mantle, same thing, show the price. And when we finish, we're going to have an option now that actually breaks that out for the customer. So they understand, okay, well, it's $3,570 total, but the baseboard is how it's made up. So kind of helpful if they want to pick and choose a little bit more. And we can kind of deliver, a pricing model that gets them to where they want to be for the budget. So cool. All right, I like it. Michael, I think that's good for today. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Please leave your comments, your questions. We love it all. We find this fun. And hopefully you found it helpful. Thank you.